Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. I shot him in the face 3 times on Monday. I came up with the perfect plan. No one even knew we were friends. On Tuesday. He stole the gun from his dad. On Wednesday. We decided to make our move during the following day's pep rally. On Thursday. While the entire school was in the gym. We waited just outside the doors. I was to use the gun on whoever walked out first, then he would take the gun and go into the gym. Blasting. I walked up to Mr. Quinn, the guidance counselor, and shot him in the face 3 times. He fell back into the gym. Dead. The shots were deafening. We heard screams in the auditorium. No one could see us yet. I handed him the gun and whispered, "Your turn." He ran into the gym and started firing. I followed a moment after. He hadn't hit anyone yet. Kids were scrambling and hiding. It was mayhem. I ran up behind him and tackled him. We struggled. I wrenched the gun out of his hands, turned it on him, and killed him. I closed his mouth forever. On Friday. I was anointed a hero. It was indeed the perfect plan. End of story. Next story. I am finally in a healthy relationship. My F22 ex best friend 22F always told me when my boyfriends were being dicks. This helped me a lot with sorting out some people in my life. Especially because my dad is an abusive and I didn't know how someone should treat you. 8 months ago I got together with my now boyfriend. 28. At first he seemed perfect in every way, but after a while I noticed some flaws. He has ADHD and sometimes he isn't really listening to what I am saying, so I have to repeat myself a lot. He isn't good with saving money too. Sometimes he's a little selfish. For example, both of us wanted to get an aquarium. He was so excited, so he ran around in the store without helping me picking the stuff I need. This was really overwhelming for me. There were a lot of people. We were 3 hours in this store. I have asthma and had a bit of trouble breathing with the mask. And I always had to look for him. So when he was done, I said I really want to just go. I almost had a panic attack and I didn't tell him. So while he was paying for his stuff, I went to the toilet and just cried. This was a special pet shop. They're selling sloth and monkeys besides normal pets. And our first trip together. We had to drive 3 hours to get there, and this store is over 13,000 square meters big. The whole drive back he didn't know why I was in such a bad mood. I didn't tell him because I thought he has to know why I am in this mood. When we got to his home, I told him why I was mad and what I was feeling in this store. He got instantly mad at himself, apologized for not noticing, and even offered me to pick out the fishes for our, yes, he said, our aquarium. He even bought an aquarium and the stuff for it online and didn't tell me until it arrived. He hugged me and told me to tell him whenever I am feeling like this again because he can't help me if I am not sharing it with him. That's when I noticed that I ruined this whole trip. Not because I was feeling the way I am feeling. Because I wasn't telling him how I felt and why. There were more situations like these. Little things that I don't even remember anymore. But every time when I felt bad because he did something that I didn't like, I didn't tell him, but I did tell my ex-best friend, who told me to break up with him because he's an R. I didn't break up. After our trip I learned a valuable lesson. We're only together for like 8 months. I didn't tell him once when I was feeling depressed. Had a panic attack. How will he know to react? How will he know how I even feel? Even if we were together for a couple of years. This man can't read my mind. I read this stuff online. In books. And friends told me that your boyfriend should always read your mind. Treat you like a princess. But this is bull asterisk asterisk. I can't read his mind. He can't read my mind. In these 8 months of being together, this sweet boy felt bad for most of the time. Former girlfriends of him told him he was a selfish dick and other mean stuff. So every time I was mad at him and didn't tell him, he was sitting there and thinking about everything he did wrong. Thinking he's a bad boyfriend and a bad person, and tried to make up for stuff that wasn't even his fault. My boyfriend isn't a bad person. He isn't perfect. But he's the best person I know. He learns from his mistakes, makes up for them and apologizes. My ex-boyfriend always apologized and nothing changed. Sometimes he didn't even apologize. He just said that I am overreacting. So I learned to keep my mouth shut. Never tell him when I am feeling bad because it would make everything worse. But my current boyfriend isn't my ex. I am glad that I noticed it before it's too late. I love this guy and I hope that I can marry him someday. He even managed his finances. Before we were together, he spent more money than he earned. He's still not saving anything. But he's getting there because he wants a good future with me. My relationship isn't perfect, but it's healthy. We're learning and growing with and for each other. End of story. Next story. An epic fart leads to my first kiss. I used to be a pretty picky eater and a pretty ornery kid. Whenever we ate out as a family, I had a go-to meal. At one place it was chicken tenders. No fries. And at another it was only fries. My family had a favorite Mexican restaurant in our old town. The owner and his family got to know my family and I went to school with their kids. We ate there so often the waitstaff knew me as Frijole Boy. Without asking, they would bring me piles and piles of refried beans. I could not get enough. Of course, situations like this can lead to unintended consequences. Things can bubble up from deep within and come exploding out at the most inconvenient of times. I'm of course talking about my first crush. Her name was Lucci and she had the prettiest smile and gorgeous black eyes. As the oldest daughter of the restaurant's owners, she was often around helping. Even though I was friends with her younger brother, I didn't hang out with her much. She was way out of my league and a whole 2 years older than me. Sadly, my family moved away when I was 10 and we could no longer visit the one restaurant that truly got me. Several years later, we went back home to visit our old stomping grounds. Our trip would not be complete without stopping at our favorite restaurant. The family greeted us at the door and sat us in the private party room where we could visit with our old friends. By this time, I was a more refined and worldly 14-year-old with a preference for tacos. That didn't stop them from bringing me plates and plates of refried beans. I ate one spoonful of beans and felt like Anton Ego in Ratatouille. I was immediately transformed to my childhood. Before I knew it, my first plate was empty and I started in on the second. Then the third. It gave me all the feels. The stresses and anxieties of being a teenager were lifted and I felt so relaxed. Then it happened. A roar ripped through the cavernous room and echoed off every surface. It shook the windows, the plates, even the piñatas hanging from the ceiling. All eyes immediately turned to the lanky teenager with a pile of empty bean plates at the end of the table. That's when it went from bad to worse. The speed of sound is faster than the speed of smell. As the odor escaped the site of origin, it slowly wafted out to fill the space. As it made its way, the eyes focused on me started to tear up. There was gagging and choking and people running for their lives. Of all the smells a 14-year-old boy could make, This was the worst. Every single person in the room left and I was trapped there. Alone and surrounded in my own stink. Still eating my beans. The rest of the group eventually filtered back in once the windows were opened and the fragrant, fresh air recaptured the defiled room. As we were leaving, my mom was apologizing profusely to our gracious hosts. The daughter, now more stunning than ever, walked over to give me a hug. She said she heard about my situation, and thought it was funny that I stayed in the room alone eating more beans. Still embracing me, she looked up right into my eyes and said, "I always thought you were cute." You know, without hesitation or second thought. I lurched forward and kissed her right on the lips. She didn't back away, but pulled me closer. In my mind the kiss lasted for 42 hours. But in real life it was over in 3 seconds. And then minutes later we were loaded up in the car and on our way home. I may never see her again and she may never smell me. I'm not sure I'm even allowed back. But I will never forget that fart or that kiss. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.